we got a cool bike here. Royal Enfield introduced the Interceptor 650 in 2018. A parallel twin air-cooled engine, kind of like an old Triumph or an old Royal Enfield. And it's been a sales success across the globe and also in America. And now to give a little bit of a different taste on the Interceptor, or as we know it in America, the INT 650. We have the INT 650 Bear, which is kind of like a Scrambler Interceptor. Royal Enfield calls it a bike that's for short hop adventures. So not quite an adventure bike, but you know, capable for doing a little bit of off-roading. And that's Scrambler style. Changes from the regular Interceptor for the Bear 650. They beefed up the frame, the headstock a little bit stiffer, and that works with a longer travel fork, so it needed to be stiffer there. And then the suspension is also new. Royal Enfield fitted Showa suspension now to the Interceptor Bear 650. And up front is an inverted Showa BPF separate function fork, so it's kind of a little bit of an upgrade and no adjustments on it, but it's a decent fork. And then at the rear end, they did a new subframe, and they did that because they wanted to allow two-up riding, and if you want to load it up for a camping trip, put a bedroll, sleeping bag, tent, whatever on the back, you got a beefier frame to support that. The engine is basically the same. It's still an A2, European A2 compliant, so we've got 47 horsepower. So it's kind of adequate. It's not super thrilling, but it is adequate, and we had a bunch of experienced testers on our ride, and we were all having a blast on this thing. So it's not super powerful, gotta admit, but it is a friendly, amiable engine. And even when we took it in some off-roading, the motor characteristics, the power delivery characteristics are really nice. It really puts down the power well. A couple other changes from the Interceptor 650. New pegs. They have rubber inserts over cleated pegs, so you could pull the rubber out and do a bit of off-roading in the mud if you wanted to do that. Or just leave them in there and have a little bit of vibration isolation. Also new is the 2-into-1 exhaust. Royal Enfield says it made more power when they put it on, but the horsepower is the same. They claim a 8% boost in torque, so maybe a little bit punchier than the regular Interceptor. I think the exhaust system does look pretty nice. They used a small muffler and then, of course, a canister underneath the engine down here where most of the muffling and the catalytic converter is. When you're seated in the Bear, it's kind of adventure-y, but it's kind of sporty too, so it's not quite an adventure bike. Pegs are a little bit more rear set, a little bit of a lean forward to the bars, but quite comfortable. And even some of the taller testers, 6'4", I think, he said he fit well on it. The seat isn't super plush. It's a nice new bench seat. And for the riding we did today, where we're hopping off and doing photos, plenty comfortable, but I wouldn't call it plush. Also in the back end that's not quite plush are the shock absorbers. Those are new, Showa again. The only adjustment they have is for preload, and the preload settings on all the bikes were on their softest setting. So you'd figure it would be compliant and maybe too mushy, and it was the opposite. It was pretty stiff, and it seemed to come up to the top of the stroke, which if you're hitting a mid-corner bump and the back end comes up, it kind of lets a bit of traction away the rear. I never had any moments on the bike, even though we were going at a pretty good pace. But yeah, to me, the rear suspension is where this bike comes up a bit short. I was talking with some Royal Enfield reps, and they say, well, maybe they can still do some changes. So that's about the worst of my complaints about this bike. From the cockpit, you've got a large circular TFT display, which is quite easy to read. Gives you basic information, but really easy to comprehend. Tachometer sweeps around like a normal tach. It goes, rev limit is 8,000 RPM, I believe. So yeah, it just, the motor, when you rev it out, it feels like it wants to do more, but it's only gonna give you that 47 horsepower. So take that as you will. Another change from the Interceptor, the fuel tank is the same on the Bear, but now we've got a cute little flip-up fuel access cover. So that's another new advantage of the Bear. If I was picking the Bear or the Interceptor, I think I'd like the Bear. It has a roomier riding position. The downside to that is the seat is up a little bit high, so I can't quite flat foot, but it's still fairly accessible. but to bring the seat up, it gives you more leg room, and then you're happier over long distances. Up front on that Showa fork is Bybri brakes. That's by Brembo, made in India like the rest of the bike. And they do a pretty good job. They've got braided steel lines, so a firm lever, but they're not ultra powerful. I think if this engine had more horsepower, you might want more brakes, but it seems like a pretty good balance as equipped right now. Probably the best advantage Royal Enfield's had over any competitors is prices. And this bike, even though it's got a lot of nice features, it's $6,849 the price is starting at. So for less than $7,000, you can get a bike that looks authentically semi-vintage. It's classic styled. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue with that. It is a classic looking bike, and it gets you down the road. The clutch is light, the shifter shifts very easily, and it just seems like a really well-placed bike in the market. There's nothing else that has a 650 engine in a Scrambler package like this. So I think perhaps what the Bear does best is it gives you that option on the Interceptor. Our art director, Chad Cochran, has an Interceptor 650, and he saw pictures of this, and now he wants the Bear 650. So image means a lot, and I think this bike looks great. It's classic, and for less than $7,000, there really is nothing else like it. So take a Bear 650 for a ride at your dealer, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and comment. Ask us some questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.